Yeah, here we go. Hey, good morning. We are here with Lake Highlands area moms and more against racism, and we're interviewing another fabulous candidate for RISD school board, Nicole, and I forgot your last name.
Foster.
Nicole Foster. You look beautiful this morning.
And
at
9 a.m. May I add?
Oh, look at
Danita is here, and we're just excited to get to know you. Thanks for talking with us. Tell us about yourself and how you got into this.
Well, I am a teacher of 11 years in DISD. I currently teach world history and world history and African American studies at Roosevelt High School, and then I taught it. Before that, I spent a long stint at Skyline High School. I have written curriculum for DISD. I grew up in Richardson ISD from K through 12. And then my siblings did too. So my brother was 7 years younger than me. He grew up K through 12 in Richardson. And our sister, who's 14 years younger than me, grew up K through 12 in Richardson too. So where'd
you go to school?
I went to Marchman Elementary, and then Richardson Junior High, and then Bertner. And then my brother went to Richardson, and then my sister went to Pierce. So we've been all over RISD.
Danita's kids go to Bertner.
Okay, yeah, go Rams.
And she's the PTA president there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yay, go Rams. So yeah, and then my mother works in RISD too. With special ed. So yes, we've been in the district a long time as far as all of us getting educated by RISD. So I'm trying to think what else. I got my BA in history from SMU, got my master's at Redeemer Theological, and then I'm currently finishing up my doctorate at Trinity Pittsburgh. And Lord willing, I'll be finished in like a month or two.
Girl, you are so busy. Now, do you have children?
No children. No children. Yeah.
It explains how you have time for all this.
Yes. So my I guess my vested interest is a bit different than your usual candidate. But I'm excited and willing to give all I've got to help the district. So
yeah, it sounds like you have a great perspective to bring to the table. So you mentioned you're a teacher of African American studies.
Yes. And
at first you said ethnic studies. Is that a change or?
Yes, I used to teach ethnic studies. And so I'm used to saying that. And this year they're like, no, African American studies. Okay. So I was just used to saying ethnic studies.
That's really neat that they have that in DISD. I'm not sure that we have that yet in RISD, but hopefully we will.
Yeah, we have African American studies.
We do. Okay, good. Well, so yeah, how did you decide to run?
To be honest, first of all, I kept getting like these texts, like, you should run. And I was like, run for what? Run for the school board, like, we think you'd be good or whatever. And then a few people had mentioned something to my family, and they're like, I think, Nicole should run or whatever. And so I looked into it because, I'll be, if I may be blunt, being from DISD, and you watch the board meetings, I was like, I don't know if I have enough energy to yell and fight to two of the boarding, you know what I mean? So that's what, at first I was like, that's what I know what the board to be, but started studying and knew of what kind of the board did just from growing up in Richardson. And so I was like, okay, I think I can do this, and I think I would enjoy doing this, and help, steer the district in a direction that would be helpful for them. Whatever tools and perspective that I have, I'll gladly share or give. So yes, that's how it started. And campaigning has been fun. I didn't think it would be fun, but this has actually been a fun process. So.
Oh, good. Well, you know what? It sounds like no matter what, we need your perspective. So whatever happens, and with all these candidates too, we're saying, you know, we hope to form a partnership with you and be able to talk with you more and do more with you for the kids in RISD. So
Absolutely.
thank you for taking the time to even invest your passion into running. I think that's awesome. Danita, do you want to follow up with a question for Nicole?
Yes, Nicole. And let me put our disclaimer out there. Lamar is a Texas nonprofit, and we do not endorse any candidates, but has offered all candidates an opportunity to answer questions related to work, related to racism, eliminating racism and racial bias in RISD. So that's our disclaimer, putting it out there. First question, Nicole. What is your view on the importance of Richardson ISD Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Department and of the work of the RISD Racial Equity Committee has undertaken this year?
Well, Richardson is, again, I'm trying to be, people know about Richardson's issues with systemic racism.
Maybe not enough people, but.
Not enough people. I think Dr. Stone has been proactive in going to different campuses, which I really appreciated seeing last year, and just being straightforward and blunt about it. I do appreciate that about Dr. Stone. Some of the issues, I think, and again, I'm speaking not as a parent, I'm speaking as somebody who is in a major urban district and who has helped with curriculum writing and stuff like that, and hiring. Some of the issues may be the type of employee pool that we have and are seeking after. That may be some of the issues in RISD. I always tell people when teachers aren't satisfied, or you don't have quite the right teachers in the classroom just goes awry. It doesn't walk in step. So growing up in RISD, I was at Berkner, in the class I'm gonna age myself, the class of 2000. I was one of few black students at Berkner, which was, that was difficult. But the teachers, in RISD, I only had 2 black teachers my whole time, from kindergarten to high school. And I graduated in 2000. And so what I noticed back then and now, they seem to hire teachers from certain schools, from certain programs that would automatically, by default, get people who, yes, well-trained, who, yes, need their content, but maybe we're not quite ready for a sprawling urban district such as Richardson. So, and the pay for teachers is a bit lower than the 4 or 5 school districts that surround RISD. So automatically you're gonna attract teachers who are, who may be like first-year teachers, which is great. Every first-year teacher needs a break. We need first-year teachers, we need young teachers, we need, however, there is something to be said for a professional veteran teacher, whether it be 5 years, 3 years, 20 years. So I think we need to think about that. And I think that when we think about that, as far as the classroom, that is gonna come out. I'm sorry, the teacher affects a lot of the temperature. That's gonna come out through the teacher into the class. And so maybe if we considered where we are recruiting, where we are, how we're recruiting, and how we are actually what are the pull factors that RISD has that recruit high quality professional teachers. And not all teachers need to be, go through the whole BA process of education. Some of your most effective teachers have been in the workplace for a long time and have become teachers. And so they bring a whole new perspective. So I think we need to look at that as well. And again, that will affect curriculum, how the curriculum's taught, who's making decisions maybe about, or giving advice about textbooks and things like that. So yes, I do have a different perspective than a parent would, and understand it.
I think that perspective is very helpful for everyone to hear. And I just appreciate that. It's interesting. Every candidate brings really helpful perspectives. So I appreciate that. Another question is, if you serve as trustee, how highly will you prioritize RISD's continuing EDI, that's equity, diversity, and inclusion work in the next several years? So how is that a priority? How much is that a priority to you?
That's honest to God, that's my first priority. And I think in that priority, I think it's best to look at Lake Highlands district of attendance. If you look at Lake Highlands, if you look from, let's take Lake Highlands elementary, junior high, and high school. If you look at Lake Highlands, or even the whole attendance district of Lake Highlands, it's kind of a representation of the city of Dallas, or even the county. You know, at Lake Highlands High School, you guys have almost a third. You have like 5% Asian, and then you almost have like almost a third of white, Hispanic, and Black. That is I think that's powerful, and that's interesting, and I think that needs to be taken a look at as far as how do we make this work, how do we make this gift actually work throughout the whole district. So, and then if you look at Lake Highlands Elementary School, you'll have a high number of white students, but then they seem to trail off at Lake Highlands Junior High. And I think some of that is, we kind of have to change some attitudes of parents, that these schools RISD is good enough for you to not send your kids to private school after they leave elementary school. This is, my parents moved here in '84 and refused to move out of Richardson because they wanted all of us to go to Richardson schools. They didn't want us to go to Plano, didn't want us to go to Dallas or Garland. We had to go to Richardson schools. And I think people don't understand quite the value they have. And I think Lake Highlands District should be kind of the pace setter in the way the district is kind of run, or helped out to see a different perspective on how else can we do this in the rest of the district.
I like the way you said that it's a gift. Yeah, our diversity is definitely a gift. Danita, you want to ask the next question?
Yes, and don't worry, Nicole, I will put it in the chat. What approaches would you like to see RISD pursue in addressing any racial disparities identified in special education placement, student discipline, home internet access, placement in pre-AP and AP courses, retention in secondary GT services, and preparation for four-year colleges?
Oh yeah, that's a long list.
So I guess you can start by addressing any racial disparities with special education placement, and then just work your way through the question. So you
yeah, and we're just kind of identifying these as issues that need to be addressed.
Yes, absolutely. I'll give an example of my example first. When I was at Berkner, I loved world history. I made no less than a 95 or 9, or I made A's. I made A's all through world history, and I loved it. I loved my teacher, Miss Hodgkinson. I still remember her name. Loved it so much, and did so well that I went to the counselor myself, not my parents, but myself, and I said, I think I need to be put in AP. She was like, why? And I was like, because I love it. I'm good at it, and I love it. And she was like, well, there's going to be more work. This was my counselor. There's going to be more work. And I said, yes, I'm ready to take that work on because I love it. Would never put me in AP program. And I would have, and I was one of a few Black students even attending Berkner at the time.
Wait, so after you asked, she didn't put you in it?
No, would not put me in it. I did so well that, I got my history degree at SMU. That's how much I loved it. It wasn't because I had a talent. I just loved it. So
I'm so glad you persisted, and way to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, and I still kind of I still think about that. Like, why did she not give me that chance when I was ready for the work? I wanted the work. Now, I was not good at calculus or algebra, but I was good at social studies and history. But they would not put me in there. We did not have at the time a Black counselor at that school, or I think that would have made a difference. I think that makes a difference in a lot of the decision process, the processes and the decision making of minority students being able to also access these things that would spring them forward later on. So I think we need advocacy and counselors. We need to look at that. I think for special ed, there is a horrible tendency to automatically place, African American, particularly males, in special ed. And then when you really look at, when I worked at Skyline, one of my students, he was in special ed, and he thought he was the hardest gangster. And when I asked him to read, he wouldn't do it in front of everybody. And he was placed in special ed. And then when I sat with him one-on-one, and he read for me without all his friends around, he read beautifully. And I was like, what? And so I think we need people to really know social aspects of different communities, culture aspects, what kids read, what minority students would read versus maybe mostly what white students would read at home, what Black and Hispanic or Asian parents are giving their kids to read at home. Now we have to compete with the phone. Now everybody wants, their reading is TikTok, the comments in TikTok. You know what I mean? So can we utilize that? Absolutely. Can we utilize social media with students? I think so. I know of teachers that are using Instagram, post. I did that one year, post a picture on Instagram and, hey, in the comments, describe what you see, or what is this, what year was this, did this crazy picture happen in? So instead of fighting this phone, I'm so sick of fighting phones in the classroom. There's gotta be some way where we can reach the kids where they're at, which is the digital age. And I think that would help out with automatically placing all these kids, particularly minority kids, in special ed, when, no, let's look at how they are getting literacy. And maybe that would be a first step.
Yeah, and engaging them. Nicole, Miss Foster, I want to be in your class. Denise, should we go to the next one?
So I have a question that still centers around this particular question. We hear our schools are always preparing for four-year colleges. I want to get your take on preparation for four-year colleges or colleges in general.
I think the pandemic has really brought to light the fallacy of that thought of everybody should attend a four-year college, because a lot of tech CEOs right now are saying, actually, we don't care. We want you to have the skill. Do you have coding skills? Do you have the skill to digitally analyze whatever software, whatever, which is interesting. Now some people say, well, that's a catch-22. It's easy to say that if you're not a person of color, because you're judged harder, to be honest, and if you're a woman, you're also judged harder. So it's easy for a lot of these tech CEOs or whatever to say that, but there is something to it. College, liberal arts colleges, they now have to rethink how they're going to do education, particularly during the pandemic. They've got to rethink, is this an investment, or are we wasting money for these, or families wasting money for their kid to get a four-year degree and then have a job that does not pay, that can never pay for this degree that they've taken out grants and loans for. Like the joke is with my friends, if you see that call coming from that used to be Sally Mae, don't answer it because you know you cannot. The job that you have as a millennial, I'm a millennial, probably does not, like, don't even answer the phone because you just can't.
Now.
You just can't, like, you can't meet what they're asking, and here, you think you've got this degree that's gonna open all these doors for you, and a lot of times it has not. So I think we need to prepare, not just prepare for your colleges, but also trade schools, tech schools, or tech programs. Like, SMU has a coding program that's, not attached to a degree. It's a program. It's an expensive one, but if you get this training, you can work a coding job, and in a year will make six figures. And that's not with my history degree. So yeah, I think we need to look at that at skills. When I taught at Skyline, we had clusters, so kids could earn their auto mechanic license, their pilot license, the cosmetology license.
We used to call that VOTEC.
Yes. And these kids, when they graduated, they were able to buy houses in a few years and able to, support family members or whatever. And yet, they weren't lawyers or doctors, but there is something to be said for the working class, and that's the right now that's the most people are in that class in the United States.
Yeah, and no matter what color you are, those are great options for lots of kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I was ecstatic when my son, he's graduating this year from Berkner, said, Mom, I think I want to go into welding. And I was like, okay.
I was just about to say welding.
I was like, yes, okay. Because I've always told my kids, if college isn't for you, it isn't for you. Don't do it for me, do it for you. You have to live that out. And yeah, it's a lot of pressure from schools.
And he'll always be able to find a job.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm jealous of welders. Yeah. I wish I was a welder.
So that's awesome. So our next question is, Nicole, do you support RISD's recent progress in the areas of PreK, ACE campuses, improvements to GT identification, and other steps taken to close the achievement gap? And do you support continuing RISD efforts in each of these areas?
Okay, so she's going to put it in the chat. Pre-K programs. You want to start with that?
Pre-K programs, I admit I don't know much about in RISD.
There's a push to make it universal in RISD, right, Danita?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because Carrollton ISD has preschool, and I spent a few days at a campus, and those preschoolers were ready for kindergarten. I mean, just the little things of, and my niece is a preschooler. I have her a lot every week, and I pick her up from preschool. And so she jumps in the car and tells me all these things she's learned, and look how she colored in the lines, and she's starting to tell me conversations she's having with other students, and I think that's super valuable. And some people are like, well, you should let kids be kids. I was like, that is being a kid. You're learning. You're learning to stand in line. You're learning to write your name. Now she's starting to write her name. We're trying to work on her hand position, but she's writing her name at 4 in preschool. And so I think preschool is vital, and the seed to bounce upon for the rest of the district to have students prepared. Preschool is just that. It's preparation before you go to, or pre-K, before you go to kindergarten or before you go to school. And I think that's highly valuable. I don't know if not having preschool would benefit the district. I think having preschool all over the place would absolutely benefit the district in the long run. That's just my opinion. Did I answer all that? Did I see?
No, let's see, what else? Oh, Danita, you're muted.
ACE campuses and GTI identification improvement in that aspect of who's gifted and how they identify gifted students.
Right, so the identification of gifted students, I do want to ask like what programs we're using or what rubrics we're using to even identify that, because a lot of these rubrics that we're using are coming from samples that don't have our representation, don't have people of color, or a lot of it. Maybe like there's like 3 kids, and but 80 kids are are white or Caucasian, and so the culture is automatically going to translate into something else that's gifted. And so I think we got to look at the sample sizes that these rubrics are using to even to name what's gifted, because what's gifted in one demographic in these sample sizes is not gifted in the other at all. So and I had that experience being going through ordination process. They used a rubric on me that was mostly white males, and so my results came out much differently, and I had to tell them, no, that's not me. And they're like, well, that's what the program says. I said, but I'm an African American female and millennial in this country, so that's going to translate differently than my white male counterparts who would answer a different way on that particular set of questions. So I think, yeah, we've got to look at the rubrics. We've got to look at what programs we're using. All GT is not math. Sorry. All that's just because you're good at math doesn't mean that you're GT. All GT is not, reading at this massive level. There's other indicators of what is gifted and talented. And if we look at those, hopefully, God, Lord willing, we will get more of a diverse population in these GT programs around the district.
So our next question, Nicole, is how important do you believe it is to implement culturally responsive teaching approaches, instructional materials, and professional development for teachers in all grades, pre-K through 12?
So I think, yes, curriculum, textbook adoptions. 2 years ago, I came to understand that the textbook that I had used in world history at Bertner was still the same textbook that they were using, and it was kind of like, man, the world has changed. So, like, you may have added like 6 paragraphs to like update on like 9/11 or whatever, but like we've got to find a new way. Maybe the district needs to look at digital textbooks that can be a live update, because again, the pandemic has changed everything. Maybe again, having a training when teachers are hired about culture sensitivity, beyond like, don't say this, don't say that. Do you know Mexican American history? And I'm only speaking from being a history teacher. Most of my students are Hispanic, and so I have to really focus on, hey, do you know that your ancestors have the solar system figured out when other civilizations didn't? Do you know that the pyramids in Tula or whatever are pointing to certain stars? Like, you come from like, your people are excellent. Your history is how your history is helping the world function. So things like that build up and applaud cultures in the midst of the globe. So it's, even our Caucasian students, applauding whatever would be important to that community, or applauding whatever would be important to, our Arab our Arab children or whatever. So yeah, it's taking time. It takes time, which teachers don't have a lot of. It does take time to really sit down and listen and understand where these cultural facets are coming from. And so I hope, in our hiring process, we have that kind of training. I hope that not just in our hiring processes, but like some of our professional development as teachers, that be a thing that's consistently a retraining, class or whatever. And not just like, here you go, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds like you'd be good at leading one of those trainings. Here's a question for you, Ms. Foster. Do you support direct efforts to address and prevent future incidents of racist or racially insensitive behavior in Richardson RISD? What is your perspective on the role of anti-racist work and discussions about implicit bias in public education? So addressing those incidents that might happen in the classroom or at schools. Anita, did I say that okay? She's putting it in the chat for you.
Okay. To be honest, address it very quickly and swiftly. I feel like, especially after this summer, there's really not many excuses out there. There's really not room or time to have students, feel belittled by a curriculum, by a teacher, we really don't have time for that, especially in a school district like Richardson, that is becoming so diverse so quickly. Richardson's becoming really diverse, Mesquite, Plano, Frisco, Garland, like people forget that the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is an international city. We have Catholic charities here. We have, things that a lot of refugees, like there really isn't time to act like, it's Dallas 1970. This is a major worldwide city. Our airport is in the center of the Northern Hemisphere. So we automatically are going to be an international city. And so I think for addressing these issues, I think we need to do it swiftly, quickly, and I'm trying not to use the word harsh, but I am trying to use the word, I think I am trying to say stern, that we can't tolerate it and we got to move on. And if whoever it is not on board with that, then you got to go. Because we really don't have time in 2021, 2022 to be just kind of this dead weight behind us that we're trying to bring along. It's just like, you gotta go somewhere. You gotta go somewhere else, get on another train.
And the other part of that question is, do you support the discussions happening in the classroom and in behind the scenes with teacher development for anti-racism and implicit bias, talking about it with the students and the teachers?
I do encourage discussion. If the adult in the room is adequately trained to be sensitive enough to hold those discussions. My classroom is all discussion. I lecture, but I'm like, blurt out what you think about this as I'm talking. Don't even raise your hand. Just say, Miss, I think this about this. And eventually, I started out like that, and it made kind of some of my admins nervous. But the kids started to love coming to class because they had a voice, and they knew that their voice was going to be listened to. One time I was teaching in DISD, we have to teach about like all the major religions in the world, and this one kid was like, "Miss, can you not talk about it?" I was like, "Well, we got to. Like, what issues are you having?" He's like, "Well, I'm Jehovah's Witness." So Jehovah's Witness curriculum is not one of the 5 major religions in our curriculum. I said, well, how about this? How about next class, because we're still gonna be talking about religions, give us insight into what it's like being a Jehovah's Witness and what you would think or do in these situations. And he did, and he did it so well that some of the parts he's like, I can't. He goes, I don't know how to say this in English. I only can say this in Spanish. I said, well, say it in Spanish. Maybe somebody else can translate for you what you're actually trying to convey to the rest of us. And they did, and he felt part of the class again. He was like, I'm not. He goes, I realize you're not preaching a religion. I was like, no. He goes, I realize you're teaching about different religions. I said, yes. I said, and your religion is included in that, even though it's not on this paper. So discussion is important because I had a blind spot that I didn't know he was Jehovah's Witness. I just knew he wasn't raising his hand or saying anything. He just kind of keep his head down. But once he got to speak and say something, then he was like at attention and offering feedback or a perspective that nobody else in that class had. So yes, discussion it's vital. It keeps kids feeling a part. It keeps them in action, and it keeps them learning. So discussion is a must.
Awesome. Well, Ms. Foster, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your Saturday morning.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have Monday off, Nicole?
Yes.
Okay, we do too. RISD has Monday off.
Yes, it's catch-up day for me.
And you may be home Tuesday.
Yes, I hope so.
One of those days next week, I think it's Wednesday, I saw 0 in the forecast, and I'm like,
I know.
Is this a typo?
I've never seen 0. I've never felt 0.
So I always, no matter what Zoom webinar we're doing, I always end with my fun question. And it is a fun question, but I like for people to really think of it as a true possibility. If you had a magic wand and you took that magic wand and you could change anything about the district as a whole, as far as implicit biases, racism, how our children interact with racism and how to deal with it, what would be that one thing you would use your magic wand to change or highlight?
The diversity of the faculty and staff, from head to toe, from administration building to PreK to paraprofessionals. That's what I would change. I would add as much diversity. Huh?
I said to the school board.
Yes, to the school board. Yes, I mean, yes, I would. That's what I would do. I would add just diversity to every level of the school district, and I think that would solve a lot of the issues that we are having. And I say we because I live right down the street from Pierce. Oh, I'm sorry, Park Hill. So yes.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Foster. We can't wait to partner with you more and do more with you, and maybe have you lead us in one of your history classes sometime.
Sure, absolutely.
And Danita, I'm off to dedicate our neighborhood free little diversity library down the road.
Yes,
so
you are. Yeah. And Ms. Foster, I don't think you know, but I was scouring your social media before we had this call. You and I have a mutual friend in Pastor Morris from Florida.
Oh, really?
Yes, he's on
nice.
He's on the Poor People's Campaign there, and he is, and Florida is one of my states that I work with because that's my day job.
Oh, wow. Are you serious? That is so cool.
So I was like, my world is really small world.
Yeah, she's a superwoman. She's a superwoman. There she is over there.
Very cool.
So Nicole, if you want to, and Danita, go to our website, and in a few minutes I'll be outside in the cold dedicating our little mailbox, our Facebook page.
Larry, don't be out so long. I walked snow this morning, and
what's y'all's Facebook page?
You can do Lamar.
Lamar?
Yeah, you can do Lamar. Is it .com?
Danita, will you try to invite her?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you let her in. Okay, Danita, I'm going. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank y'all so much. This was fun. I really appreciate y'all having me.
Thank you.
All right, y'all have a good day.
Bye.